What's up, you guys? Coming back at y'all with another top 10 Commander video. This time we have the new set Battlebond to look at the 10 best Commander cards from the set. As always, we're going to start it off here with some honorable mentions. And before I really get into it, I just want to say this set had a ton, not just a lot, a ton of good reprints. So most of this list is going to be comprised of those reprints because unfortunately the rest of the set, while it might be good, it might be a little bit innovative, it just gets overshadowed tremendously by some of the best cards we've seen in a set as far as reprints go. So the first one, we have Play of the Game, but you could really just include a lot of the assist cards because that whole assist mechanic, I really love it for Commander because so many times we've seen games just turn into arch enemy and all you really need is a little bit of extra mana to get things done. While this is great because you can collude with someone else, this one in particular is my favorite because exiling all non-land permanents is really good. It's better than most of the other ones. And then next we have Peer and Toothy, but you could also just lump in a lot of the other partner legendary creatures. This one is probably my favorite though, because Peer is going to give you extra counters, and Toothy is going to kind of be like a Chasm Skulker, but even better because you get card draw. Really decent options here, but unfortunately nothing really felt strong enough for me. Number 10, going on to the actual list here, we have Nirkana Revenant. This card has been expensive for a long time, originally from Rise of the Eldrazi. This is basically like a Cryptghast. May not be as efficient, may not fit into as many decks, but it's still going to give mono black that edge that black seems to have in a lot of matchups. Insane mana doublers like this are just so good in the Commander format. It also has the underrated Shade ability, where you just pump her up there for each black mana you want to spend, which is kind of cool because she does end up doubling it for you. Number 9 is Mind's Eye. This is a very underrated and flexible card, but it was in desperate need of a reprint. It fits into so many decks where efficient card draw is lacking, so you have to resort to colorless. Mainly mono white, mono red. You don't always have the best card draw in those colors, but even outside of that, if you just want more card draw, it's still a great card. You just have to make sure you leave up enough mana that you can pay that extra every time your opponents want to draw a card so that you can draw a card. But consistency in Commander is so important. It's a singleton format after all. The next card we have, number 8, is Synth Lattice. This is a staple in so many good artifact decks in the format. Almost all of them play this card because it's great for combos. So many things work out well with it. It's deadly in Karn Silver Golem. It's deadly in Sidri Galvanic Genius. You can also just blow up lands with it. It's fantastic. But probably the most obvious reason to want to play a Synth Lattice, for me at least, is to just Vandal Blast and win the game right there. It's a really deadly card. It works out well in artifact decks for multiple reasons, but its potential to win you the game is probably the biggest reason why I like it, and it is one of the more expensive staples for an artifact deck. The next was really difficult. Number 7, out of a lot of the friend or foe cards, the two that really caught my eye were Corvus Fury and Virtus's Maneuver, because this is a mechanic that I think is going to work out perfectly in Commander, and is really the only reason why these are on the list is because the mechanic itself is innovative and it's going to allow you to collude, which is one of my favorite things to do in Commander. Giving a random opponent or just giving anyone you feel like may be easier to deal with down the road in the game an advantage temporarily with a card like one of these, while also punishing your opponents with the foe option, I think is spectacular. Corvus Fury, I think, is pretty impactful. You're going to be allowing you or a friend. You're almost always going to choose yourself to be friend, so you're going to get the benefit no matter what, really, unless you want to punish yourself. But you get awesome card draw and you force your opponents to take some damage. Virtus's Maneuver, each one of your foes is going to have to sacrifice a creature, but each friend is going to return a creature card from their graveyard to their hand, which is definitely a way that you can shift the balance of the game into your favor, especially if you are playing an archenemy like game and you're forced to really gang up on one player. This is a spectacular card to do it with. They all really are, but these two really stood out to me. Number 6 is Reno Rector. This is kind of a spiritual successor to Academy Rector, which is on the reserve list, I believe, so they couldn't reprint it. This one is pretty much the exact same thing, but instead of enchantment, it's Planeswalker. So when this dies, you exile it, you get whatever Planeswalker you want. So Ugin, Nicol Bolas, whatever is in your deck, you're going to throw this into most Super Friends decks. I don't think there's a reason why you wouldn't want it. Planeswalker tutors are pretty decent, but having something that could bring it right out into the field is even better. And while I don't think these are the most fair cards, cheating into play isn't something I really like, but it's very powerful, and I think Super Friends decks are absolutely going to love it. and it's going to be an auto-include. Number 5 is another reprint, Greater Good. Pretty much from here onto the rest of the video, we're going to be talking about the reprints that we got, so amazing cards. Greater Good is spectacular, and it's needed a reprint for a long time. It's a green sack outlet, which we don't have too many of them, and ones that we do have are usually going to cost you mana in order to sacrifice. This one has combo potential because you don't need any mana to put into the activated ability. You just sacrifice a creature, maybe recur it, do it all over again, you get more card draw. You do have to discard 3 cards, but that's definitely worth it when creatures you sacrifice in Commander are much bigger and are going to allow you to draw way more. But even outside of just combo potential, having a sack outlet in general is necessary for so many strategies. Just the act of sacrificing important creatures that have good death triggers, it's so valuable. Number 4 is Seedborne Muse. This is probably one of the more expensive cards, and it really gained popularity a short time after Prophet of Crucifix was banned, because a lot of people realized, hey, this isn't that much worse. Yeah, it doesn't allow you to flash into play creatures, but it does allow you to untap more. It does also fit into more decks than just green-blue, so it has that going for it as well. Just a spectacular card. Also extremely good for control, because leaving up mana means that you have mana for answers, responses in general. That's really where I see Seedborne Muse being the most effective, but just any sort of deck that can take advantage of multiple activations in a turn cycle of your favorite ability, or just being able to do more stuff on your opponent's turn because your mana is also going to be there on their untap step. So I think that's just a spectacular reason to play it. Offers you more mana to do with whatever you want. Desperately needed a reprint, another card that didn't have one for a while. Number 3 is yet another card that is getting a reprint for, I believe, the very first time. Diabolic Intent from Planeshift. This card is, for all intents and purposes, demonic tutor, with a very slight drawback for certain decks, which could also be interpreted as an upside for some other decks. Because sacrificing a creature isn't necessarily a bad thing if your deck wants to sacrifice creatures, or you just have a ton of tokens and you don't care. This is basically demonic tutor. Now, certain decks where you don't have creature production aren't going to want to play this because you don't have a creature to sacrifice. Could be a little risky there, but really 2 mana to get whatever card you want from your deck. This is black tutoring, so you don't have to reveal it. I shouldn't really have to explain why Demonic Tutor is amazing. This card is maybe a notch worse than Demonic Tutor, which isn't really saying much because both are incredibly powerful in the game, getting whatever you need. Number 2 is Land Tax. This is a card that I think if it were more available, which this reprint will probably make it more available, this is going to see play in so many white decks. For those people who don't already know what this card does, it's going to ensure that you have your land drops for the rest of the game, or at least the most relevant part of the game, which is your setup. That's when you really need your land drops. If you're going 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, this is going to get you some land searches during your upkeep. It's fantastic. Even if you're not using it to ensure your land drops, you're at least going to be using it to thin your deck of a ton of basic lands, which is why I use it. If you're playing mono white, one of mono white's major weaknesses is consistency. So if you're able to take a lot of those planes out of your deck, you're going to be drawing into a lot of your big creatures, you're going to be drawing into a lot of your token stuff, you're going to be drawing into whatever your strategy is, and that's really going to help out mono white. But even outside of mono white, really just control decks, non-aggro decks, anything that really needs to compete with your opponents that are aggressively ramping up in their strategy, you would probably want to play a Land Tax. It's a pretty good card, very underrated. Not a lot of people give it a chance. It's 1 white mana, and it's just going to sit on the board, and not too many people are going to view it as a threat, even though some might be jealous that you're getting some land tutoring earlier on in the game. Just a fantastic card, well deserving of a higher spot on my list, and that's definitely why it's there. So number 1, I think everybody knows by now, Doubling Season is going to be the number 1 reprint, or just the number 1 card in general from the set. This does feel like a reprint set, even though it has other themes and other strategies newly invented. But Doubling Season is really going to steal the show, and rightfully so. It's a staple in so many decks, whether it's for Planeswalkers or just any deck getting more counters or more tokens. It's a combo piece for certain decks like Gave Guru of Spores, and just any sort of counters in general. It doesn't really have to be +1/+1 counters like a lot of people assume, but things like loyalty counters also works with that, so you could fool around, as well as the obvious token strategies. But really no surprise here, shouldn't have to explain reprints, and I do feel kind of bad because most of the list was reprints, but 2 slots were not. That just goes to show how much they really cared about putting some good value cards in here, which I'm not a big fan of the artwork in the set. I am a fan of a lot of the cards in the set though. this does look like it's going to be pretty fun to play with. But as always, you guys, let me know what you think about the video. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video.